Hey guys, you know what? I thought that today we could do something slightly different, and I decided to take us back to the basics. So this video will be dedicated to all of you just starting with PLCs or maybe wanting to learn how to do things in TIA Portal. What we'll cover in this video is the very first contact with a PLC. We'll try to find it on our network, figure out what we're dealing with, and load the hardware config to it. And if you like it, if you like this formula of going back to the basics, please let us know and maybe we'll make it into a series. Okay, so we are in TIA. We have a fresh new project. So yeah, click here, create a new project, give it a name. In the project, we have absolutely no hardware configured whatsoever, but I have connected my PLCs, few different PLCs to my network, okay? So as you can see, we have no devices. So you can imagine two scenarios here. One scenario is it's a factory PLC, you just unboxed it, a brand new one, connected to 24 volts, connected via an Ethernet cable to your PC or a laptop. That's one option. The other option is maybe you just got to a plant, and there is this PLC, they have a problem with it, or you're a new employee and you need to get access to it, okay? So two different scenarios. Regardless which one it is, the important thing is to know what you're connected with, okay? Because in TIA, to be able to connect to a device, we need to know to which network card it is connected. So normally, as you can see, you can have quite a big selection of different interfaces. One place where you can maybe find a clue as to where you are actually connected, if you don't know, is if you go here, right click, open settings, change adapter options, okay, and you have different adapters. And for me, I'm connected here, okay? So I'm one clue for me is the status is not disabled and the status is not network cable unplugged because I have something plugged there. You might see an unidentified network if it's not connected. But yeah, generally speaking, it will be one of these with something here, not network cable unplugged or not disabled. Then, if you look here at device name, you will see a device type actually. So if it's Wi-Fi, probably it's not the one that you're looking at. So for me, it's this Realtek USB GBE family controller. And this is what is going to be important for me, because here in TIA, on the left-hand side, I will now find the same thing, okay? And if I know that this is what I will always be using, I can actually go here, display interfaces, hide all of them, and show just this one. So it is a bit clearer. Now, if you go here, you can see you have two options: update accessible devices and display more information. So if you do update accessible devices, what it does now, it does a DCP scan. So it uses discovery and configuration protocol on layer 2, okay, to find your devices. So it will be broadcasting messages using MAC addresses. So if you are using VPN, for example, this will most likely not work for you because VPNs, most of them use just layer 3. They don't allow for layer 2 communication on the MAC level, while PROFINET is MAC based, okay? While the configuration layer of PROFINET uses layer 3, uses TCP to configure these things, and the initial discovery is done over layer 2. And as you can see here, on the left hand side, it found 3 devices, okay? One of them has a name, PLC_1, PROFINET interface 1, and an IP address. And this is how you would expect maybe a running PLC, a PLC that was configured in the past to look like. So if it's maybe a plant, you connect to a PLC, most likely you will see something with a name and with an address. If it is a brand new PLC, most likely it will not have a name like this, so it just says accessible device, and it will not have an IP assigned. It only shows you the MAC address of your device, okay? So this kind of also proves that, you know, this device doesn't even have an IP address. So we are not using IP addresses to connect. We are not using layer 3. We're using layer 2, and this communication is a MAC-based communication. So now one of them is my device, okay? If I don't know which one it is, well, you can check on the device. If you have physical access to the device, you can read the MAC address of the side of your device. Or, you know, if it is a fresh new device, what I would suggest, connect just one device and you will immediately know what you're dealing with. This will be the only device that is discovered here. Now, what if you double click update accessible devices and it isn't there? Well, probably you have a network problem, okay? Because this uses layer 2 and MAC addresses, even if you are in a different subnet, it will still show you the device. What it will do though, if you are in a different subnet, if you click the little arrow, see, here it shows me all the things, but if I was in a different subnet, it will only show you online and diagnostics, like this one option. So if you are on the same subnet as your POC, you will see all the options. If you are in a different subnet, you will only see online and diagnostics, but it will still pop up here. So if you can't find it, check your cable, you know, try to connect directly from your laptop to the device. If you are maybe plugged into a switch, try to go directly from your PC to the actual POC. Make sure that your cable works. Make sure that you are selecting the right interface here. Worst case scenario, you know, maybe try if you can connect to something else as well. So if you, for example, connect to another PC, can you ping it? This will prove to you that the cable works, that the card works, and hopefully will allow you to find what the problem was. But if the device doesn't pop up here, you will not go any further, because this is like the basics of communication. Although, stop here, because I did tell you before, it will not be here if you are using a VPN. So if you, for example, also have a switch that only supports layer 3 communication, or you have a VPN, so it supports layer 3 communication, you will not be able to find your device here. There are ways to connect to it, but you need to know the IP address of your device, and then you would scan the device looking for a specific IP address, okay? But if you are connected physically, cable, from your PC to the POC, it must be here, okay? So we have this POC, that is something that was clearly configured before, and you have two out of the box, you know, POCs, or maybe factory reset POCs, because these two guys I actually factory reset before. So now to start working with them, we need to add them to our projects. And now, you know, what you can do is you can do go to devices and networks, yeah, or even here add new device. Now you will probably know if it's a 1200 or a 1500, okay? 1200, 1500, yeah. Now you know. So you know which one it is, and then you can go, okay, in my case, I'm connecting to a 1200, but I'm not sure which one, okay? If you know which one, just select it, it's gonna be easiest for you. If you're not sure, then you have this option, unspecified CPU. There are two options here, but the other one is the C+ version. It's just a version that can work in harsher environments. So we go with the standard one. Now, yeah, I'm not sure which firmware version this is. So I'm just gonna select 4.4 and hope it's fine. Yeah. Now, if you're not sure and like you don't want to be guessing like me, you could go online diagnostics and check, and I will show you this in a second as well. But let's try this. If it's a brand new POC, it will most likely come with the highest firmware possible. So I have my unspecified CPU. As you can see, the device is not specified, so I need to either use hardware catalog to tell TI which 1200 it is exactly, or use the detect to find out the configuration. Here I need to select, okay, I'm using PNIE, PROFINET. Which interface am I using? Again, I'm using this Realtek USB GBE family controller. Yeah, and now let's start search. As you can see, I have two different POCs. Yeah, I guess it wasn't the smartest thing to connect to at the same time, but that's fine. Because they only have the MAC address, they don't have an IP yet. They are showing here interface type ISO. Okay, detect. To execute this function, yeah, it needs an extra IP address. I wonder what it's gonna add it, but that's fine. Let's see what happens now, okay? So as you can see, it added an extra IP address in the 0 range. You know why? Well, it added in the 0 range because the default IP address for a PLC in TIA is 192.168.0.1. So it just wanted something in this range. So now my adapter actually has 2 IP addresses. One is in my home network .50 range and one is in .0 range. It was just added here. There you go. Module replacement between unspecified CPU and blah 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 v3 not possible. So clearly this CPU that I selected here is firmware version 3, and there is no backwards compatibility of any kind, especially there is no way to even upgrade version 3 S7-1200 to version 4 1200. And if I checked before, I would be able to find this information. But what you will see now, when I try to detect the TIA realize, okay, this guy doesn't have an IP range, so I'm going to give it the default IP address of 0.1, so we can now access it using, as I mentioned before, layer 3, which requires IP addresses for configuration, okay? Because with DCP, with layer 2, we can only do things like give it a name and give it an IP address. Okay, so I go online diagnostics, and if I did check this tab before, I would see, okay, I'm on firmware version 3, and I would be able to even check, okay, that's the PLC that I'm looking for. So let's add it now. Add new device, S7-1200 CPU. Now it says 1215C DC. Okay, 1AG313 here stands for firmware version 3. So let's add this guy. Yeah, and should be happy days. Now let's see, can we actually connect to him? Is the question. So if I go online, again, select my USB GBE. See, I mentioned before, if you were using VPN with layer 3, you would not be able to access it using layer 2 communication. But what you can do this, show devices with the same address, and it will either use the address from the project, or if you want, you can just pop in the address here. So 192.168.0.1 is what I'm using. I don't need to click start search, okay? As soon as you stop typing, it looks for your PLC and it is found fine. Normally, you can just use show all compatible devices, start search, and the result should be the same. But it also shows me the other 1200, well, because it's a 1200 on my network, okay? But as I mentioned before, this device, it only shows as a generic S7-1200 interface type ISO, and the address is the MAC address, while my 1215 that I tried to detect before already has an IP address. So if I go online, I can see that my PLC is rather healthy, okay? As you can see, it's in stop, yeah, but that's fine. I didn't expect anything else from it, so I'm quite happy with this. Yeah. Now, if I wanted to check, maybe something is going wrong with this guy, I can always go online diagnostics. I can go diagnostic buffer. If it is stopping for some reason, I would probably find an indication why it is stopping here. If I wanted to change his IP address, I could theoretically go here, assign IP address, but I would suggest against it, okay? Because then when you download your project, it's going to overwrite it again to the default of 01. So rather than doing this, you would go device configuration, check your PLC, okay, properties, PROFINET interface, Ethernet address. Here we need to change it. Oh, but we can't. Why can you not change it? Because we are online with the POC. So we'll go offline with it. And now we should be able to set it to 0105, for example. Yeah, so this is set IP address in the project. If this is ticked, when I download, it's going to get the IP address from my project, the one that I set here. If I assign an IP address, then I would need to make sure that the IP address is set directly at the device. This means that some other components can actually change the IP address of the device, and it won't be the IP address that is loaded when I load my project. Yeah, so that's fine now. The name, generate PROFINET device name automatically. So my POC is called POC2. So the PROFINET device name is POC_2. But you could change it. Okay, so if you do right click and you find yourself rename, which is F2, S7-1200 version 3. Yeah. Now, as you can see, it changed the PROFINET device name to be S7-1200 underscore v3. Yeah, so what we can do, you can now download this. Again, show compatible devices. This guy, load. Yeah, so that's fine. And if I go back to online access on the left hand side and update accessible devices, I can see, okay, it changed its name, it changed its IP, it's all good. This is a very important place in TI that allows you to quickly check if you can find your device, if it has the correct name and correct address. As I mentioned before, I can actually span now two networks, 50 and 0. And this is because if you right click here on your adapter and go configurations, you will be able to see that if you scroll down, you have some local IP settings. So I added this local IP address, okay? This one I can access both 0 and 50 without issues. You would normally be able to see it, but as I said, if you click this arrow on the left hand side, if you are not on the subnet, you will not get all these options. You'll only get online and diagnostics option. So now what about this guy? I know this another 1200, so maybe I will try to use the method that I wanted to show you first to detect it. So I click detect, again select my USB GBE, and now I go for this guy, detect. Let's see if this gives me more luck. Connection failed. The selected online target could not be reached. Now this is interesting. Okay. Could not be reached. But I can certainly reach it here. What happened? So if this doesn't work for you, delete. Yes. Now you go to your device. Yeah, 0_1 online and diagnostics. Now this is interesting, okay? Because as you can see, we are on the same subnet, but it still only gives us online diagnostics. So there is clearly something wrong with our POC here. In this case, NG is reset. Let's see if this helps. Yeah, so we update accessible device again. We can see our device, and what you can see, the IP address wasn't changed. Okay, there might be another device on the network. This could be causing problems, or something just went wrong. Okay, it might be a damaged PLC, for example. But what basically happened is the address did not get changed. If I now go online and diagnostics, I still am not getting anything. Let's try to assign the IP address 192.168.0.5 with the subnet of 255.255.255.0 assigned IP address. The parameters were transferred successfully. As you can see, it already changed to 05. He still isn't having it. Okay, let's try to also... This is very interesting. He clearly doesn't like it. How bizarre. Okay, PLC1, sign name, let's see. Okay, assigned, let's see. So it changed the name to PLC1, it changed the IP address, so it like has no full configuration, and should be rather happy, you know, it should be a rather happy device. And it is, okay? So as I mentioned before, PROFINET uses layer 2. For layer 2, there are, well, what is important for layer 2 is the MAC address, but what is important for PROFINET is the actual PLC name, and it is the name that PROFINET communication actually uses to talk to other devices. And you will see this problem most often with drives. Okay, so if you have a fresh new drive like Dynamics G120, if you don't give it a name, you will not be able to connect to it. And this was exactly the same case. So if you are seeing a similar problem where you maybe just can't detect this PLC, you can't go online with it, make sure to also give it a name. Okay, so give it a name, give it an IP, and it should be rather happy. It should tell you what it wants. And now if we go back and try to detect it, it should all work fine. So we go unspecified CPU, detect, PNIE, USB GBE. Yeah, I have my PLC1, detect, and now it finds it fine. Okay. Unfortunately, some of these errors overlap, and it will be trial and error to find out, you know, what is the problem for you. But generally speaking, if you can't connect to your PLC, if you can't go online with it, first thing you always do, you go online access and make sure you can see it here. If you see it here, but it comes as accessible device and MAC address, for example, make sure to give it an IP through the online and diagnostics option functions. Yeah, so give it an IP with the subnet of your choosing, most likely 255.255.255. Then when you give it the IP, make sure, okay, it changed the IP, that's fine. And then the next thing, give it also a name. Okay, so assign PROFINET device name and give it a name. It could be a temporary name because I'm not intending to keep this PLC1 and 05. You will then overwrite it with your config, but giving these two things to your PROFINET device will make sure will ensure that you can actually go online with it, you can connect to it fine. And the same rule will apply to other devices like drives, for example, other devices that use PROFINET communication. There is not much more that we can do here, you know, in terms of the hardware configuration. If I had problem with any of these PLCs, as I said, you'd go online diagnostics, you'd go diagnostics buffer, start reading the buffer, see what is happening. But they are generally speaking nice, happy devices. The only last thing in terms of the hardware, you might want to do, you know, let's say it's a device that you got off someone, okay, like let's say this V3. I got it, you know, it had an IP, it had a name, I wanted to reset it to factory defaults. The way you do it, you would just find it either here in your project if it is added to the project, or via online access. You go online diagnostics, you go functions, reset to factory settings, delete IP address, reset, yes. And yes, it will stop the PLC, it will reset the settings of the IP, of the PROFINET interface, sorry. And if we update accessible devices, it should come up in a moment as accessible device and the MAC address again. Yeah, it's still resetting. Yeah, there you go. Accessible device and the MAC address. Okay, so this is how you would reset it to factory defaults. And yeah, this is your first contact with a PLC. If you have a brand new PLC, or maybe you go to factory floor, to shop floor, connect to a PLC, you want to add it to your TI portal, these are the options. You either go add new device, select the device that you have. If you don't know what device it is, you go online access and check. Yeah, so online diagnostics and check what device you're dealing with, or read on the side of your device. If you're lazy, as I said, add new device, select the type, select unspecified, it will tell you. So there is a multitude of different ways of adding your device. And if you have any problems, make sure that the device is seen here, has the name, has the IP address. If not, check your cable, check if you can ping other devices. Unless you are using a VPN, as I said, then it will not be available here. And if you want to go online to your device, you will need to add it by going add new device. Yeah, then you would determine, you know, okay, this is the device I'm using. So you need to know what device you're using. You won't be able to select it. In the properties, what I would suggest is that you put the IP address of your device, whatever it is. And then if you want to go online to it, you go online, extended, go online. You select the interface. So if you are using VPN, you would probably use your VPN. Let's say that I will select this NordVPN, okay, or any other VPN tunnel that you're using. Tap Windows adapter, yeah, and you do show devices with the same address. And if it is the same address as here in your project, that's fine, start search. But if you are using VPN, it will quite often be an address, something like 172, for example, the address that VPN gives you PLC. So you would then need to put it here manually. And even if it's something different, it's going to detect it, it will allow you to go online. So that's it from me in terms of the first contact with the PLC, the first hardware contact with the PLC. And maybe, you know, maybe we'll turn it into a series of videos, and in the next video we'll do some basic config. Maybe we'll go through the hardware configuration in terms of different settings that you can set and explaining them, or maybe we'll go and do some basic programming. If you have any preference, please do let me know in the comments. Bye!